The Beast has once again proven himself as the face of WWE. After long await and silence, he has finally responded to Oba Femi. And you won't believe how Paul Heyman reacted to this shocker. Stay with me because what I am about to tell you will make you rethink all what you know about WWE. Ever since Oba Femi demolished Brock Lesnar, his reels have been blowing up all over social media. By now, you've probably realized one thing. Whenever I hype a superstar, that superstar ends up making serious noise. And I had already told you this before. Oba Femi is a top-tier talent who can absolutely dominate in a monster-style role. Today, you can clearly see that happening. It hasn't even been that long since Oba Femi made his debut on WWE's main roster, yet he's already created a massive impact in such a short time. I also mentioned earlier that Bron Breakker is on the smaller side. The way WWE is trying to present him at the same level as Brock Lesnar and Goldberg, it just doesn't seem realistic. And now you can see it yourself. Despite getting a strong push in the division, Bron Breakker hasn't been able to create the same level of buzz as Oba Femi. What is going on, everybody? And welcome back to the channel. Before we get into anything else today, I need you to do me one favor. I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now. Put down your phone if you're multitasking, pause your other tab, tell whoever's next to you to hold on for a second, because what I'm about to break down for you today is one of the most layered, most exciting, most genuinely unpredictable situations that WWE has given us in a very long time. And I say that with full confidence. I say that as someone who has been watching professional wrestling, specifically WWE, since around 2002. That's nearly 24 years of sitting in front of screens, reading newsletters, watching pay-per-views, studying storylines, analyzing character arcs, and truly learning. What separates a superstar who looks good on paper from a superstar who actually moves the needle in real life? And today, friends, everything I've been telling you is playing out right in front of our eyes in the most spectacular fashion. We are talking about Oba Femi. We are talking about Brock Lesnar. We are talking about Paul Heyman's absolutely stunning reaction to everything that's unfolding. We are talking about Roman Reigns lurking in the shadows like the tribal chief that he will always be. We are talking about CM Punk, who cannot seem to stay out of the crossfire no matter how hard he tries. And yes, we are going to address Bron Breakker as well, because that conversation is long overdue, and I think once I break it down for you today, everything will make perfect sense. So buckle up, get comfortable. This is going to be a long one, and trust me, every single second of it is going to be worth your time. Let's get into it. Let me take you back to the moment that set the entire WWE universe on fire. Oba Femi, this young, absolutely jacked, ridiculously athletic Nigerian powerhouse, picked up Brock Lesnar. He picked up Brock Lesnar and powerbombed him like he was nothing. Like Brock Lesnar wasn't a 6-time world champion. Like Brock Lesnar wasn't the man who conquered The Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania. Like Brock Lesnar wasn't the single most feared individual to ever step foot inside a WWE ring. And the reaction from the crowd, from social media, from the wrestling community worldwide, it was absolutely volcanic. Now, I've said this on this channel many times, and my longtime viewers will back me up on this. Ever since Oba Femi first showed up and started making waves, I told you this man has something special. I told you that Oba Femi is a top-tier talent who has every single physical attribute you need to dominate in a monster role in WWE. And look at what's happening right now. Look at the numbers. Look at the reels blowing up all over social media. Millions and millions of views. People who don't even follow wrestling regularly are sharing clips of Oba Femi because the image is just that powerful. A young African giant manhandling Brock Lesnar. That image speaks for itself. But here's what I want to spend some time on, because this is where the real analysis begins. Why did that moment land so perfectly? Why did it feel so believable? Why did the crowd accept it without hesitation? Because not every powerbomb on Brock Lesnar would have gotten that reaction. Not every superstar could have delivered that moment and made the audience believe it. Let me break this down for you properly. This is something that a lot of people don't fully appreciate, and I think it's one of the most fascinating aspects of professional wrestling as a form of storytelling. In wrestling, believability isn't just about athleticism. It isn't just about who's technically the stronger person or who has the better moveset. Believability in wrestling is about optics. It's about what your eyes tell your brain before your brain has time to think rationally about it. It's a visual medium, and the visual impression a superstar makes determines how their actions are received by the audience. And this is exactly why Oba Femi powerbombing Brock Lesnar made the entire wrestling world erupt. While I'll be honest with you, if Bron Breakker had done the same thing in the same situation, the reaction would have been noticeably different. Now, before any Bron Breakker fans come at me, let me be very clear. I am not disrespecting Bron Breakker. Bron Breakker is a talented athlete. He comes from a legendary wrestling family. He has intensity, he has charisma in his own way, and he clearly works extremely hard. Nobody is questioning any of that. But there is a conversation we need to have about presentation, about scale, and about the very specific role that WWE seems to be trying to cast him in, and whether that casting makes sense visually. Here's the thing about Brock Lesnar. When Brock Lesnar walks into a room, into an arena, into a television screen, the man looks like a force of nature. He is enormous. He is terrifyingly muscular. He moves like someone who could legitimately end your career without breaking a sweat. Everything about Brock Lesnar's physical presence screams danger at an almost primal level. You don't need to know anything about professional wrestling to watch Brock Lesnar and think, that man is not someone you want to mess with. So when you're telling a story where someone is going to physically overpower Brock Lesnar, where someone is going to lift Brock Lesnar off the ground and slam him down, you need someone whose physical presence justifies that action. You need someone who, when standing next to Brock Lesnar, doesn't look small. You need someone whose size and stature makes the audience think, okay, I can see this. I can believe this man could do this. Oba Femi is that man. Oba Femi stands tall. Oba Femi is massive. Oba Femi has the kind of physical presence that, when you place him next to Brock Lesnar, the matchup makes visual sense. There's a symmetry to it. And because of that symmetry, when he executed that powerbomb, every single person watching, whether live in the arena or at home, accepted it. They didn't question it. They felt it. And that feeling turned into an explosion of noise that you could probably hear from miles away. Now think about Bron Breakker in that same scenario. Bron Breakker is a solid, well-built athlete. He's got a great look. But when you place him next to Brock Lesnar, the height difference creates an optical illusion that is almost impossible to overcome. He looks smaller. And in the world of monster-style wrestling, smaller means less threatening. At least on first impression. It means that when he tries to do something dominant, there's always a little voice in the back of the audience's head saying, wait, can he really do that? Does this add up? And that little voice of doubt? That's the enemy of a great wrestling moment. Now, I want to be fair here. There are plenty of examples in wrestling history of smaller guys convincingly manhandling larger ones. But those scenarios work because of storytelling context. Because of months and sometimes years of character building that shifted the audience's perspective. You think back to a guy like Samoa Joe, for example, who wasn't the biggest man in the room but whose intensity and style made you believe he could hurt absolutely anyone. You think about CM Punk, who we'll get to later, whose character work was so compelling that the audience bought into him regardless of size. But in those cases, it took time, took work. It took compelling storytelling to bridge that gap between visual impression and emotional investment. The difference with Oba Femi is that no bridging was necessary. He walked in and immediately, people accepted him as a legitimate threat at the highest level. That is an incredibly rare quality. That is what separates good talent from generational talent. And WWE would be making a colossal mistake if they don't fully commit to building Oba Femi as the next great monster of professional wrestling. Let's talk about the timeline here, because I want you to really appreciate just how remarkable Oba Femi's ascent has been. It hasn't been that long since Oba Femi first appeared on WWE's main roster. We're not talking about years and years of slow building. We're talking about a relatively short window of time in which this man has gone from a promising newcomer to someone whose reels are going viral across every social media platform you can name. And that is not normal. That is not something that happens with just any superstar. Think about how many wrestlers get called up to the main roster and just exist. They're there. They compete. They win some, they lose some. They get featured occasionally. And then 6 months, a year, 18 months later, they're still essentially in the same position they were when they first arrived. Maybe a little more familiar to the audience, but nowhere near the level of genuine cultural buzz. That's the normal trajectory for most main roster call-ups. Oba Femi is not on that trajectory. Oba Femi is on a completely different rocket ship. And the fuel for that rocket ship is authenticity. He has the physical presence. He has the athletic ability. He has the intensity. He has the presence of mind to execute moments that become memorable. And now, he has the most important thing a rising superstar can have in today's media landscape: viral moments. In 2026, viral moments are everything. One clip, one image, one 10-second video of something absolutely jaw-dropping. That's how new fans are made. That's how casual viewers become hardcore fans. That's how a superstar transitions from someone the wrestling community knows about to someone the general public is talking about. And Oba Femi powerbombing Brock Lesnar is exactly that kind of moment. You know what this reminds me of? And I think my longtime viewers will appreciate this comparison. It reminds me of moments in WWE history where a newcomer did something so audacious, so visually stunning, that the entire narrative of the wrestling world shifted overnight. The difference between those moments and what we're seeing with Oba Femi is that those moments were often manufactured. They were the product of creative decisions, scripted situations designed to produce a viral outcome. And sometimes that works. But what WWE has with Oba Femi feels more organic. Feels more earned. It feels like the audience isn't being told to react. They're reacting because they can't help themselves. That is the most powerful force in professional wrestling. Now let's talk about the man who has been at the center of professional wrestling's most important stories for decades now. Paul Heyman, the wise man, the special counsel, the greatest manager and mouthpiece in the history of professional wrestling, and I will die on that hill if necessary. Paul Heyman's reaction to what Oba Femi did to Brock Lesnar was not just noteworthy. It was significant in ways that go far beyond surface level. Because when you've been in this business as long as Paul Heyman has, when you've seen everything there is to see in professional wrestling, when you've been involved in storylines that have shaped the very direction of WWE for the better part of 2.5 decades, your reactions carry weight. Your body language, your expressions, your words, they are not random. They are intentional. They are calibrated. And they tell a story. So when Paul Heyman reacted to Oba Femi's dominance over Brock Lesnar, I want you to think about what was happening beneath the surface. Paul Heyman has been aligned with Brock Lesnar for most of their shared history in WWE. He has talked Brock Lesnar up. He has sold Brock Lesnar as the most dominant, most dangerous, most terrifying human being in the history of sports and entertainment. He has stood at ringside and watched Brock Lesnar dismantle legends, destroy careers, and conquer things that the entire wrestling world said couldn't be conquered. And now he is watching a young man from Nigeria treat his guy like a crash test dummy. The dynamic there is extraordinary from a storytelling perspective. Because Paul Heyman is one of the smartest people in the wrestling business, both as a character and as an actual human being. And a man as smart as Paul Heyman does not miss what's in front of him. He recognizes talent. He recognizes star power. He has a nose for who's going to be a major player in this industry. And when Paul Heyman looks at Oba Femi, when he processes what just happened, when he sees what this young man is capable of, you have to ask yourself, what is going through his mind? Is he thinking about revenge? Is he thinking about how to position Brock Lesnar for the comeback? Is he already calculating the next 3 moves on the chessboard? Or, and this is the question I really want you to sit with, is Paul Heyman looking at Oba Femi and seeing something that reminds him of the first time he saw a young Brock Lesnar and thought, this is going to change everything? Because that would be the most interesting story WWE could tell right now. What if Paul Heyman's shocking reaction is not just shock, but recognition? Recognition of a generational talent. The kind of recognition that a man with his experience can't fake, can't hide, and can't rationalize away. I'm not saying Paul Heyman is going to jump ship. I'm not saying he's going to abandon Brock Lesnar tomorrow. But I am saying that Paul Heyman's reaction planted a seed. And in the Triple H era of WWE creative, seeds like that have a way of growing into trees. Watch Paul Heyman very closely in the coming weeks. his facial expressions, his hesitations, his choice of words. Because Paul Heyman is always telling you more than he's saying. That's what makes him the greatest manager of all time. Now let's talk about the other side of this equation. Because Brock Lesnar being powerbombed by Oba Femi doesn't just end the conversation, it starts one. And the conversation it starts is one of the most compelling possible stories WWE can tell going into the WrestleMania season. Brock Lesnar does not forget. Brock Lesnar does not forgive. And Brock Lesnar most certainly does not let something like this slide. I want to be very clear about something here. When I say Brock Lesnar is advertised for upcoming Monday Night Raw, that is not nothing. In the WWE landscape of 2026, appearances are not random. Talent doesn't show up just to fill time. When Brock Lesnar's name is attached to an upcoming Raw, it means the decision has been made. It means something is going to happen. It means the next chapter of the story is being written in real time. And there are a few scenarios here that I want to walk through with you, because I think understanding the possibilities makes watching the show so much more exciting. Scenario 1. Brock Lesnar returns to Raw in full beast mode. Not just angry, but calculated. He doesn't just charge at Oba Femi and get into a brawl. He waits. He watches. He lets Oba Femi think he has the upper hand. And then, at the exact right moment, Brock strikes. And when Brock Lesnar strikes with that kind of cold, methodical intent, when it's not just about anger but about sending a message, that's when things get truly scary for everyone involved. That's the kind of Brock Lesnar that ended careers. That's the kind of Brock Lesnar that conquered the Undertaker's streak. The angry Brock who just goes out and swings is dangerous. But the cold, calculating Brock who decides to make an example of someone, that's a different level entirely. Scenario 2. Brock Lesnar shows up not to attack, but to challenge. And by challenge, I mean he does something we haven't seen in a very long time. He actually shows a level of respect. Not warmth, not friendship, but the kind of grudging respect that a predator shows when it encounters something it actually considers a worthy adversary. Because make no mistake about it, having Brock Lesnar look at Oba Femi and say, in essence, "You've earned my attention," that elevates Oba Femi to a stratosphere that very few people ever reach. Scenario 3, and this is the one I personally find most intriguing. What if the story isn't just about Brock and Oba? What if there are other forces at play? What if the return of Brock Lesnar to Raw isn't just about settling a personal score with Oba Femi, but is actually a piece of a much bigger puzzle that involves Roman Reigns, involves CM Punk, and involves the kind of interconnected storytelling that the Triple H era has made its signature? Because if you've been paying attention to WWE over the past year or so, you know that nothing happens in isolation. Everything connects to something else. Every decision, every appearance, every attack. It's all part of a larger tapestry. And when you start pulling on the threads of the Brock Lesnar and Oba Femi story, you quickly realize that those threads are connected to some very powerful storylines that are already in motion. Speaking of powerful storylines already in motion, let's talk about Roman Reigns. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Why are we bringing Roman Reigns into the Brock Lesnar and Oba Femi story? What does he have to do with any of this? And to that I say, when has Roman Reigns not had something to do with everything? Roman Reigns is the gravitational center of WWE. He has been for years. Even when he's not the champion, even when he's not feuding with the top guy directly, Roman Reigns is the fixed point around which everything else in WWE orbits. And in 2026, that has not changed one bit. But here's the nuance that I want to explore, because there's a fascinating layer to what's happening with Roman right now. Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar have one of the most storied, most significant, most emotionally complex rivalries in the history of WWE. They have main event multiple WrestleManias. They have beaten each other bloody and brutal on the grandest stage of them all. Their history is deep. Their personal tension is real, or at least presented as real in the most compelling way possible. So when Oba Femi comes along and plants Brock Lesnar into the mat, how does Roman Reigns feel about that? On one level, you might think Roman is pleased. Brock Lesnar being taken down a peg removes a powerful piece from the board, creates an opening. It weakens a man who has always been one of Roman's most formidable adversaries. But on another level, and this is where Roman's character becomes truly fascinating, Roman Reigns operates on a very specific code. A code of dominance.